Hello, good morning, and welcome to Sunrise Daily today. I'm Chamberlain. What's up?
Good morning. I'm Mom.
Yeah, look who's
Well, I think Tony was just wanted that unveiling, so just to unveil
they're still
this.
hearing my voice, but they still can't see my face. Yes, that's me.
It's good to have you here.
It's good to see you. You know, Abuja people weren't showing me enough love, and I just thought I'd come and take some Lagos.
Oh, dear.
It's
So
good to see you guys.
Yeah, good to see you too.
And they actually look better, in person than on TV. The TV hasn't been doing you guys justice.
Well, quite honestly, we
You
can
look
say the
really
same
good.
for you. Quite honestly, we can say the same for you. It's one thing to behold beauty, it's another thing to
Look at
experience it. So it's okay to blush.
Where is he going? Where is he going?
Look at that.
Well, hope you had a safe trip at least to Lagos.
It was a good one. It was, there's always some drama at the airport. You always braced up for that,
yeah.
but we got here.
Well, who knows? I'm trying to remember, when are they even going to open? There's the Lagos International Airport, the new one. I think they've spoken about it a couple of times, but who knows when.
Okay, so we landed at the international airport, the tarmac of the international airport, and then we had to drive
Taxi.
to MM2. Yes, no, taxi. The plane
Yeah, I think that's
all
about to
the way
become
to
the
the
old-
international airport.
Okay.
And then now, and then we got off the plane, and then we entered buses. They provided transport, which took us to MM2. So I think there is some work going on. I don't know if it's on the tarmac of MM2 or so, I don't know. But that was the arrangement yesterday. I do not know if it has anything to do with the international airport. But yes, I do remember there was a structure.
Yeah.
And Abuja has opened its
Abuja
own.
has, but who knows? I think sooner rather than later. Because it's just about time. We need to get all of this sorted. But you don't want to talk about your experience when you arrive Lagos from outside the country. A different kettle of fish
outside the
entirely,
country,
I tell you.
I think that's going to take a while now. Some people are already started traveling, and I don't know, how the experience is. But some people have been complaining about the number of tests that you have to do. Yes, those who are going to school have to do COVID test. They have to take the vaccine. We have to ensure that you have a number of things in place, and countries are not joking with that anymore.
And that's not even to talk about the costs that come with that one.
The stress. There's no one-stop shop to do all of that before you leave.
And it's not about to go down, the costs, really. But speaking about good news, it's good. It was good, really good to see yesterday that the children who were abducted, remember these students, they are FACA students, after all.
Such
a
a
while.
relief.
So they were back home.
Something to cheer, at least.
It is indeed good. And, much as there are attendance stories and backstories concerning what transpired, how did it happen, how should we avoid it, first, it's good that they're back. And we hope that, at the risk of sounding like a broken record, that lessons have been learned, both on the part of what now? The authorities to ensure schools are safe or this kind of thing doesn't happen again. But what can parents do in this case? People have got to go to school.
Lessons have been learned. I will take that with a pinch of salt. Lessons have been learned. Have we learned any lessons, Chamberlain, coming from Chibok, Dapchi,
boy.
and Yobe State? Look, Jangebe, Kankara, Kagara. Can we name, how many are we going to name that we now start entering the universities? Greenfield University, then mechanization school, abductions. I mean, have we really learned lessons?
Because what we saw, that just clearly indicated that they now moved the bandits or the kidnappers or terrorists. They had moved from the bushes, coming into cities and hitting new frontiers. But so it appears as though they were making progress. But what about we, security agencies?
For me, all of that is important, but for me, the most important of all of these are the people themselves. You talked about what have we done with the Dapchi children, with the Chibok girls, with even the Afaka 29, the Kankara boys, the Kagara boys, and all of that. What is their lives like? What's life to them now? How is life treating them now? These guys were away for 55 days. How is life going to treat them subsequently? The kind of trauma they have gone through, what kind of process are we going to put them through to ensure that they do not live with that trauma? For me, guys, that's the most important thing.
But the thing about security and governments or governments across borders, that you could do all you can or think you're doing your best. But the challenge usually is when these kind of things happen, all hell breaks loose. All the criticisms usually just come down. It's the results that people see. They base their analysis or whatever it is that they have on what they see.
Nothing else matters.
That's just the way it is.
Nothing else matters.
That's the way it is. I mean, we say you still got your last production.
Indeed, in broadcast, so,
it's just how it is. All right. Let's start with Vanguard today and look at some of those lead stories here this morning. Relief, as kidnappers release 29 Alaka students. Obasanjo, Gumi, broker release. Oh, okay. Remember there was a sudden visit. Just to okay, well, let me go on with the riders and see if it helps. We share anguish of Greenfield Varsity students' parents at presidency. They tweeted that a couple of days ago. Obasanjo cautions FG on payment of ransom, says Buhari, Jonathan governments paid ransom but denied doing so. Arrest, interrogate Gumi now, Fani Kaide tells FG. So you'll always have all these kind of stories associated with that lead story. And then you see Afaka freed, Afaka 29 free. That's the caption of that picture you see right there on the front page. So, well, much as it's good news, much as they say sometimes no news is good news, but look at this. Just beneath that lead story, tucked away right beneath it. Tension in Abuja over hundreds migrating herders from Nigeria Republic.
I think I'm going to stay in Lagos a while. Let Abuja hold its tension very well.
Another thing
what is going on?
We hear that schools are even closing in Abuja as a result of the threats. And the police say they have a lead on it. Well, so you really don't have anything to fear more.
Indeed. I mean, that's the prayer now, isn't it? That's the prayer. Our correspondent, Emperor Simon, did a special report which aired last night. He's working on it for a while. He went to Niger State to see those communities displaced by Boko Haram. And, it's such a sorry sight.
Wow.
When you compare, and they spread over, an area. Niger State is pretty vast in its expanse of land. They spread over an area. And you just have to ask, how did we get to this story pass? It's from little stories like this. When you hear, they're coming in communities. And I don't know if you have been seeing those kind of stories making rounds on WhatsApp and a number of other social media platforms where you see that people have been reporting people coming in truckloads to certain areas.
Different parts of the country.
In different parts of the country. And then you're not seeing this, So when you see news like this and it's making its way to the front page of a daily, you don't take it with a pinch of salt.
It just suggests that there's something, is it a script or something? Because look, there's no way anyone will say security agencies don't have a hint of all that is going on. They certainly do know.
I would say
they have intel.
I would say it's a lot more than a hint.
The question is, what are we doing?
That's a big thing.
What is being done? Is there a will to do anything?
Big questions, which we'll keep asking. The people demand answers. But I'm going to let you take a look at Mr. and Mrs. this morning. Mr. has got to be a little bit more complimentary, but that's why I'll let you see that.
There has to be a protest this morning.
Well, you can take a look at what's on the back page this morning. Leicester City slammed £80 million on Ndidi. So, and then Onachu hopes to end up at Arsenal. Market value 15 million. It's good to see,
15 million what? Is that pounds or naira?
No, that's pounds. It's got to be pounds. 15 million pounds. No way. If it's a 15 million naira, then I should be playing as well because that's chicken feed.
Well,
there you go. That's
Let's look at Tribune for you. Nigerian Tribune has this on the front page. 2023 will either birth a new Nigeria or ground it. That's from OBJ, former President Obasanjo. 2023 will either birth a new Nigeria or ground it. False ransom payment asks government to develop means to tackle bandits. To page 2 read for you. A number of people will say before now, you'll be encouraged to pay the ransom, but eventually the people will be caught. In recent times, we're seeing less and less of that. You just paid the ransom, even though we'll always hear the denials. No, we know nothing about the ransom that was paid, if indeed the ransom was paid.
Which is
but
what they
hey,
always say.
this is it. False ransom payments ask government to develop means to tackle bandits. And you also see this, warlords gradually taking over Nigeria. Northern Christian elders warn. Kaduna, 29 kidnapped college students freed. Troops rescue 13 abducted victims from bandits. So yes, we've seen the return of the Africa students. We're waiting patiently for the return of the Greenfield University students. It would seem that the abductors of those ones are a little more brutal in their approach. So
depending on they mentioned that as well.
Our hearts continue to remain in our mouth, but hopefully, they will be back as well. Over 40 million sickle cell patients have no access to medical care in Nigeria. That's according to a rep member. It will be suicidal for federal government to reduce workers' salary. That's also on the front page. Yes, you know who's speaking, the Nigerian Labour Congress. I think this is a cause that everyone can join. It will be suicidal for federal government to reduce workers' salary. Demands increase in remunerations, allowances. Ask Buhari to call finance minister to order.
I don't think they should take those kind of things lightly because I think the authorities don't want to see people hit the streets because the fellows will get out there on a regular basis when you're moving around. People beseech you, they just want they can't even eke out a living anymore. They look to you. If you have that semblance of anything whatsoever, they just come to you.
You hear
and
of
you have no choice.
Poor.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a poor that doesn't have any job. Then there's the working poor. You're working, but, you're before the first week in the month, your salary is gone.
First week? Come on, Malware. First week?
I'm trying to paint the best scenario.
back in the day, they paid people cash in the office. That's why they say that your take-home pay doesn't take you home. This one doesn't even take you to the bus stop from your office. Most of the time. But by the time you get the pay, come on, the whole thing is deducted. And the only thing that we have continued to say on this program is, look, let there be enabling environment for people to do stuff. You say that government officials have the laxity to do for agricultural business. Okay, so what kind of enabling environment is there for them to do that?
Yeah, especially with the security situation right now. Even land around Abuja that normally people will buy for farming purposes. Even, I know a few colleagues who own land around where farms are. And now they're looking to rent those houses and move to the city because of, the security situation.
Wow. Okay. Well, Nigeria NewsDirect this morning leads with Nigeria might break up after 2023. Obasanjo, that's former president, as Benue leaders seek former president's support, prominent Nigerians to end orgies of violence, of killings.
Different ways of looking at that story.
Sincerely.
2023 will either birth a new Nigeria or ground it, and you see that Nigeria might break up.
Well,
that's another way of saying it.
Is this what the former president said? Exactly, or the editors?
I wonder what, maybe what, inferred meaning?
I don't know. No, I want to read the story to see what he said. How he said it.
Exactly. Okay. Well, right above the nameplate, a number of stories there, but that one, bandits release abducted forestry college students. Find the story on page 3. And under the pictures, APC governors, Senate caucus declare support for Buhari over fight against insecurity. Find that story on page 3.
Take a look at The Guardian next. Federal ministry fails to keep records of houses built, sold in 6 years. How can this be, you may wonder? Well, look at the riders. Over 250 billion naira received by housing ministry. Housing agencies exonerate themselves from poor bookkeeping. Anti-corruption agencies blamed for lack of monitoring. Sector reflects nation's opaque budgeting governance, says CSJ. Housing industry needs reform. Audit, says CODE. Activists seek National Assembly public hearing on ministry. You know, the thing about all of this, you see this kind of stories, people tend to dismiss them with a wave of hand because, look, at the end of this, you know, what meaningful action or steps are taken? Because you do know that if this were a private entity and government were to look into your books, you know you could be able to face the law and face the music. But in this case, it just appears as though some persons are above the law.
They are.
Not really, that should not be the case. So those kind of components are things that make people wonder and say, look, why should you be above the law? If you can be above the law, what makes you any different from us? After all, we are the ones who pay the tax. We are the ones who should be asking you questions. You should be accountable to the people, or not the other way around. But this is what you see these days.
You know, it goes back to the core of every ministry, which is the civil service. They are supposed to keep the system running, politicians in, politicians out. How well is that being done, if at all?
You mentioned how many projects were duplicated in the budget.
360.
It's not the first time. And look at the amount. It's in billions. Who's going to face the music on that?
Always the people we see.
Do you know?
Who's going to get queried, at least, the minimum for that?
So it just appears as though, don't worry, slap on the wrist, go home. Wow.
Sad.
Well, let's look at Daily Trust for you. After 15 million naira ransom, I didn't say it. Daily Trust said it.
15 million.
It's written in very small print there. After 15 million naira ransom, one bandit released in exchange for 27 Kaduna students. Family, state government rejoice. Yeah, we really don't care. We just want the children back. How Obasanjo Gumi negotiated release. They have the how in the paper. Jonathan Buhari's government paid ransom to kidnappers. That's according to Obasanjo. That's all on the front page there. You find a number of other stories there. Federal government harmonizing, not cutting salaries. So the minister has quickly responded. It will seem, yes, because, I mean, Labour really released a pretty strong statement on the purported, is it the kite that was flown about? Maybe it was what they understood, cutting costs or something like that. And one of the lines there made me laugh. They say Nigerian workers are indeed miracle strutting on two legs.
Oh dear.
Exactly.
Under the circumstances.
Yes, under the circumstances.
Look at the inflation rate, for instance.
Strutting on two
Double
legs.
digit, the highest in recent history.
So the minister has come out very strongly saying federal government harmonizing, not cutting salaries. Well, I think she might need to explain a little more what harmonizing really entails. You find this one. Government wants investors to raise $250 million for national carrier. Okay. Okay, a national carrier, not again. At the bottom here, insurgency. Our husbands exhibiting abnormal behavior. That's according to the wives of our troops.
Soldiers.
Yes, of our soldiers. They're complaining.
And
it's not to be... It's not unexpected, is it?
Yeah, it's a very serious one because the country tends to downplay it. You know, PTSD is huge.
Yeah.
It could mar their lives forever. But over here, you know how some things go. So the society doesn't seem to pay attention to those kind of emotional needs or psychological trauma that soldiers go through. We may underestimate it, but it's very huge. And
we have seen, symptoms of it. I remember the soldier who I think killed his his fellow troops or killed his boss or something to that effect, and I think he killed himself as well. So I mean, we've seen things like that. We've seen the manifestation of this. So we cannot take this kind of headline lightly. Our husbands exhibiting abnormal behavior.
And we don't have any idea how far-reaching the effect will be because it's the wives talking now and they have children.
Yes.
Just imagine
they live within a community.
They live within communities, thank you. So the reverberating effect of these things, especially for people who are the troops who are on the lower rung of the ladder in the echelon, that really is something to give serious concern.
A number of other stories, but we might leave you to do. Look at this one though before I drop it. Buhari is in charge. APC senators reply opposition colleagues. But let's leave it there for Daily Trust newspapers.
Okay, talking about dailies, let's look at the Daily Times newspaper this morning, and it is still talking about insecurity. Obasanjo opposes secession and ransom payments. That's the lead. of the Daily Times newspaper this morning, and most certainly as clear as can be. And right above the nameplate, APC senators tackle opposition, insist Buhari in charge of government. Says inflammatory statement by opposition, threat to Buhari's authority. Interesting way to put it, I guess. And right under the picture, one of the stories there, on military allocation, Nigerian military got maximum budget allocation. That's ascribed to the finance minister. The story is on page 4. And we hear from other reports that there hasn't been an audit of military spending over the past few years, up to 10.02 trillion naira. I guess it's time to ask some questions. That's the Daily Times.
Well, take a look at Blueprint next. APC senators to minority caucus. Your plan to impeach Buhari dead on arrival. Accuse PDP lawmakers of playing politics with Nigerians' lives. Say threats of constitutional measures can't work.
Well, at least the conversation is happening where it should happen. You know, within constitutional quarters.
That's the way it should be.
That's how it should be, not outside of it. So all that talk of a coup d'etat, rumors and, you know.
And we hope that ideas will contend over here, as opposed to them throwing chairs. Not that we expect it to happen.
The chairs have been pinned down. They can't throw them
Oh, pinned down.
What about punches?
Throw them anymore.
I don't think they'll be able to throw punches at this period, so it's it should be. And then this one, tax evasion. FIRS plans direct deductions from defaulters' bank accounts. Well, they got to remember, people are not happy, so they need to be careful. Don't look desperate, wanting to get all this money. Because they keep asking, what are you doing with the ones you have taken? Who's accounting for all these things? So
military spending, right?
Wow, there are several spendings.
Yes,
several spendings. I've lost count. I've lost count.
Well, Leadership has this one on the front page. Abuja schools shut down as truckload of bandits arrive in border town. So it's the lead story on the front page of the Leadership. In case you missed it in small print in all the other papers, it has it right there on the front page. Veritas Varsity, yes, Durban Poly students vacate campuses, so they have the names of the schools. We're monitoring the situation, that's according to police. 27 abducted Kaduna students regain freedom. Don't pay ransom to bandits, Obasanjo warns. That's also there on the front page. After 30 years of absence, Navy returns to ports to check arms influx.
After 30 years?
After 30 years, yes. Well,
so who is going to do the mop-up of the ones
that have already made their way into the country? We don't know. The 300 million out of the 500 million.
Yeah, we'll even see the 300, all those ones.
Yeah,
you have to see to mop it.
Well, it's not water.
It wants to mop up.
It's not water. Otherwise, I'm giving you a mop up.
I wish him well while he's trying to mop up.
I saw a report. It's a very scary report, and I told you about it yesterday. I think it's in Libya. It's an average of 6 guns to 1 civilian, including women in the country. And
see why?
It's very, very scary.
Do you hear cases of headmen killing people there?
I'm trying to see a number of other stories. On the corner, I know there was one story about reps, you know, saying that they should suspend census for a while.
Yeah, people have been displaced.
Yeah,
There's so much going on, so I don't know how they want to do census.
They should suspend, but they didn't suspend party registration.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
They have a number of other
and they got huge figures for that one.
stories on the front page. Well, they also have this one, tax evasion. FIRS plans direct deductions from defaulters' bank accounts. That's also there on the front page. Let's leave it there for Leadership newspapers.
Yeah, and that ends a look at some of the dailies here today. We're back in a moment. Stay with us. All right, welcome back. Yes, indeed, we're keeping our focus on security as it unfolds in the country. Huge concerns everywhere. We've got Mozu Magaji joining us this morning. He is an APC national stakeholder. He was also a member of the APC Presidential Campaign Council for 2019, and he's an engineer. Good morning. Thank you for joining us today on the program.
Good morning to all of you there in Lagos.
I know all of us. Yeah, Makwa is not over there in Abuja. She's here with us, so she'll be getting questions from here. Okay, but, you know, taking a look at what is playing out, I mean, looking at that report just played, several questions, but chief of which for some people will be, in spite of all that is going on, does it come across to you as though anyone is listening or doing something about what's going on? Because it keeps increasing almost on a regular basis.
Well, thank you very much, Chamberlain. It comes to me as the system is being overwhelmed, unfortunately. And I think that report is very saddening because to hear citizens basically resigning to their fate in their own country, basically expecting death coming to them anytime, it's very unfortunate. I mean, the whole essence of the state is to protect the lives and the property of people, the citizens. I mean, to see Niger State, to think that Niger State is basically a stone throw from the capital is to say the least, very, very disheartening. It's honestly, as I was watching the report and also all the other issues coming across the country, I really feel like we've come to a crossroad where honestly we have to evaluate our status as a government and also as a nation. This situation we're in is beyond politics. It's just about the ability of the whole country to stand on its feet and defend its citizens. And honestly, every suggestion, every help, every means that is necessary to safeguard the citizens' lives is welcomed. And at this stage, I would like to honestly urge our administration under President Muhammadu Buhari to have an open mind in what solution will solve this problem. The citizens have given us mandate, and we've exercised that mandate for 6 years now. This is May, and therefore we are in the half term of the second term of this administration. If we do an appraisal, we will safely say that at this point, we should be counting our gains. But unfortunately, we are in fear, we are frustrated, and we are getting to a point where we're losing faith in our own nation. So I will say that this is a very, very important point to reflect and understand that the mandate given to us is for a purpose. And that purpose, the first most important part of that purpose is to safeguard citizens' life. But it's sad that we are not even counting gains of development, economic prosperity. You know, all the things going on now with the infrastructure development has been overwhelmed and overshadowed by our desire to exist safely in our own country. And I think at this point, it's very important to say that Nigerians should work closely with the administration, pray, because we are beyond a point where we will point fingers now. We will just basically manage this transition.
You know,
to a successful 23,
yeah, my apologies.
So that we have another administration.
Those looking from outside may not exactly understand how it is that, you know, the authorities can't seem to place a lead on all of this that are playing out. But within the party, the leadership, the group, I mean, they expect you to have conversations and talk to yourselves frankly behind the cameras. Do these kind of conversations actually go on? Do they have a clear picture of what Nigerians feel and what is really going on?
We have said a lot about the internal mechanisms of our administration's dynamics. One thing I do know is that the presidents have a consultation forum with the party, with the National Assembly, and with other major stakeholders in the polity. What I do not know is what is it that has been discussed? Because if the party, as an arm of the democratic successor of the administration, represent the people, I mean, have every single presence in all the wards, in all the corners of the country, then the party should bring a feedback to Mr. President on what is happening in this country. We do before we know exactly what is happening. This is just the party. I mean, the National Assembly have representations from all constituencies in this country. The National Assembly also represents us. And therefore, in that forum, I expected that feedback will be given to Mr. President and the Federal Executive Council on the state of the nation. And not only that, at the disposal of Mr. President are very important arms and agencies of the government. And therefore, we do not have to wait to hear this news from newspapers or social media. Intelligence, security architecture, policing, the military, and other paramilitary agencies are all there to actually have their ear to the ground and monitor what is going on. That is why I used the word overwhelmed at the beginning of my discussion. I feel that, honestly, whatever it is that we are doing, it's not working effectively because we are losing people and we are losing lives. And beyond that, we are losing our respect as a nation, not only in Africa, but all over the world. Countries around us that have stabilized their system and democracy and are growing, we always mention Ghana, for example, in our neighborhood, or Rwanda, or Kenya. In Africa, these are countries that are making good progress, and the leadership has succeeded in stabilizing the country, securing the citizens, and growing their economy and bringing about development. Yes, Mr. President gets his respect all over the world as an individual. And I always want to say this, that as an individual, we have a very credible president. But as a leader, the president needs to do a lot more to transfer that credibility to the leadership of his government. Because at the moment, citizens are losing confidence in the way this country is being run. Unfortunately, it's leading to undemocratic activities, calls, and aspirations. And I want to say this very clearly. There is no alternative to democracy because the foundation of this government, the foundation of this country is being rooted in a peaceful transition and transfer of power. Yes, we can be frustrated. We can be so much in a situation where we start losing confidence in the system. But the system itself works because it works for many other countries, and it has worked for this country. I want to say clearly that we should desist from any undemocratic act that will truncate this journey, a journey that has earned Nigeria praise all over the world, that has made us a shining light in democratic transfer of power and transition in Africa. We should sustain that. Yes, we have a problem. The way out of this problem is to organize ourselves, coordinate ourselves, and look for credible alternatives when 2023 comes. But before then, we need to put our heads together to help Mr. President and this administration to solve this very, very myriad of problems. And the government itself needs to honestly listen more, come down from high horses, and basically identify expertise. Every single challenge in human life have a solution. The problem is who provide that solution and who think he has that solution. Expertise everywhere in the world is what solves problem. I think it is important that Mr. President identify expertise, not only within the security, but within the social framework and the architecture of government to help basically provide relief to citizens. This insecurity is multidimensional. We have cried and cried regarding the service chiefs. We now have new service chiefs. The security has taken completely new dimension that citizens are now being picked from their homes and ransom is being negotiated and given. The more money you pumped into this problem, the more problem you harvest. So we need to sit down and think differently. Honestly, it is going to define, unfortunately, the legacy of Mr. President. And Mr. President came in as a general. We voted for him.
If you can hear me, Mr. Magaji, two things I'd like you to quickly address here. The first, you talked about the system being overwhelmed. Some people might say that the system doesn't look like it's overwhelmed. It does look like, you know, they have an idea of what is going on. And then the second about getting, you know, more people to profile solutions. Just a few days ago, we saw the People's Democratic Party saying, oh, we're shelving politics. We understand that this threat is existential and we would like to shelve politics and we would like to sit at a table and see how it is that we can come up with solutions. That doesn't seem to have been received very well. But let me quickly give an instance of where a part of the system keeps warning people who wish to create anarchy or who want to create anarchy in the system. The DSS recently released a statement saying they will no longer tolerate those whose aim was to throw the country into anarchy. They affirmed their unambiguous support to an indivisible, indissoluble, and united Nigerian state in accordance with the provisions of the Constitution. Should we really be getting threats like this or warnings like this at this stage? Or should we be seeing action? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think the DSS are doing their job. They're supposed to safeguard the system. But the problem is DSS should reflect on what is the cause of these agitations. I mean, we're in a political democracy. When DSS issued a warning is because people are agitating for something. The question is why and what is that something? At the moment, like you have rightly said, I am very glad that both organizations that represent ethnic nationalities or religious bodies and even the opposition politics, political parties have come out to say that, look, our suggestion is intentionally made as stakeholders. Is not meant to adopt an undemocratic means of truncating power or this process. And that has been made clear, which means we are now back to the suggestion of putting our heads together to get to the solution. When DSS said that we will not tolerate any act of anarchy, it's true that anarchy is not good for the country. But what they are not actually recognizing is what are the causative and elements that resulted in people going to these extreme views that are basically broaching on the sovereignty of the states, on the integrity of governance, and also on the existence of our party in power. We should honestly work very closely with representatives of people, like I said, the National Assembly, the Executive Council, and the architecture of security to address a very serious issue. My fear is simple. The more we push back on the desire of people to live peacefully in their own country, the more we get reaction. I mean, in engineering, we always say action and reaction are equal and opposite. But in politics, it could be opposite, but it doesn't come equally. It can come in a different and more magnitude. So I will say that, honestly, we need to face the social problems first before we deploy the forces and the warnings. The social problems is very simple. We are here talking about just our existence in a country that is ours, just our survival in a country that is ours, just our peace, just our environment to do business, to cater for our family. Are we asking for too much? Is the country demanding too much from leaders we have elected? We need to be accountable to the citizens. We need to have responsibility. The whole essence of this foundation is the Constitution. The Constitution guarantees basic right to citizens, and citizens are asking for that right. So therefore, I think the pushback should be carefully looked at so that we don't push people off the grid and then we get into the same anarchy we are trying to prevent.
Mr. Magaji, one of the things that you have said indicates quite a number of interventions that need to be deployed. But you cited some things that suggested perhaps political solutions. Now, you are not unaware, Mahapo mentioned it a little earlier, that a particular section of the political class have been talking about us all coming together to have conversations. The problem for me is not coming together. The problem is the process. How do we engage ourselves if we can't find a way to have these kinds of conversations? Let's even begin from there. There is the National Assembly, and then there are people who are, and it's, of course, a good number of, at least the APC and the PDP are dominant parties in the National Assembly. Do you see a role, a political role for the National Assembly in stemming this tide?
This is a very important discussion, because at the root of most of the problems we are facing, or we always go back to it, is when we are challenged as a nation, we tend to resurface in agitation for a different political structure and solution. I am honestly convinced that this country needs to be looked at again. The structure of the country is designed in such a way that we accuse each other and no one is better off. And I think, like you rightly pointed out, the question is, what is the constitutional process that can lead us to amicably and peacefully sit down and tell ourselves the honest truth? And the honest truth to me is simple, that we can accuse each other, we can point fingers. The question is, who is actually better off? I'm a northerner, I'm from Kano State, and I have been accused by colleagues and brothers in a very civil political discussion of dominating the polity, dominating the economy, and dominating the security. So I ask the question, if I dominate the polity, I have the president. Yes, I have the executive council and appointees that are constitutional, just like every other state. But what is my economic situation? And what is my security situation today? So the question is it working for me if I dominate somebody? It's not. The question is, look at all the indices of development. The North today is actually worse off. Security, education, prosperity, development, I don't know. What have you? The North is not very well positioned. In fact, other parts of the country that have been pushed off in opposition space have managed to organize themselves into a survival mode and come up with a credible economic and development model. So I will say to you that, look, I think this country needs to be reviewed, and I think need to be fairly and equitably structured. I've always advocated for what I call development federalism. Development federalism, in my view, is a consensus by the 6 regions and Abuja to create a development template over time and devolve power gradually to the regions and to the states. The truth of the matter is, we all need to go back to our states. If all the states are working, the federation will be working, because development is not in isolation. Everywhere you go, it's either a local government or the state. So if you devolve power to the local government and to the states, and then create an economic investment template in the form of development federalism, which basically bring the potential of South-South to be an oil and gas hub in Africa, we will stop importing petroleum products. We will stop importing things that we should be exporting, and we will become net exporters of that product. The Southeast, we all know, are very ingenious people with technology, manufacturing, and trading. Please, let us invest heavily. Let us leverage on our resources to and raise the capital to invest heavily in manufacturing so that we don't import things from India. We don't import things from China. We import and we produce these things we need for agriculture and for our transportation and other industrial machinery in the East. It's doable. I've been to Newi, I've been to the industrial hub of Aba. I have seen what the East can do. We will be proud to say, made in Aba, produced in Aba, made in Nigeria. And we will all be proud citizens. And the economy of the East will be a net contributor to the center. The same thing with the Southwest. Southwest dominantly is a manufacturing and marine economy. Singapore is exactly like that. And therefore, if we develop the marine economy, the ports, and the manufacturing base of the Southwest, we will be net exporters of goods and services and service providers in marine. And therefore, the Southwest economy will become net contributor. If you take the 3 regions of the North, Central, East, and West, and you take the 3 countries of Cambodia, Thailand, and Vietnam, our economy is almost the same thing. So, and these countries are booming individually. If you invest today in these regions, in agriculture agro-processing and organized market with the standards for export, standards for feeding Africa. We're even lucky that the African Continental Free Trade Agreement is in effect. We have the whole of African market to ourselves and the world. We will be one of the richest regional zones in Nigeria. Therefore, the North will now become net contributor to the center. And Abuja can maintain our sovereignty, can maintain our identity, can maintain our defense, can maintain our currency, and we raise the flag. Now I am saying honestly, the structure of this country is not working. I don't want to be accused even when I am suffering. I want my people to wake up and rise up and feel proud, just like every other Nigerian will feel proud when that sense of ownership is created. We should review. After all, the amalgamation has expired and the Constitution is being reviewed by the National Assembly. So the question is, what is the process? Now there are three different dynamics going on. The first one is the National Assembly has set up a very, very credible committee reviewing the Constitution. The question is, can they change Nigeria to a point where they can change the such that the structure can say, we don't want two bodies in the National Assembly. Can they do it? We want to save cost and have only one unicameral body. Can they do it? So can they meet the aspiration of this change? Waking up to create a platform for this constitution. And the third one is the one we don't want. It's eruption, it's anarchy. And that is important. And when you mention that DSS is talking about anarchy, I get very worried because we're almost there already, that citizens are advocating for change in an undemocratic way is not where we want to be. So the government of today should actually honestly review its position, and the National Assembly, as I said, with the political parties, both PDP and APC as the major parties and other parties, to sit down and say, how do we do this peacefully? We all love each other. We all are Nigerians. We all respect each other. At individual level, we all have friends across the whole country. And honestly, everybody wants to have a giant, functional, proud country called Nigeria in Africa. Not only Nigerians, the whole black are looking up to us to provide leadership. We are better up together, but we need to have a functional structure.
But we'll be back in just a moment and get some of the matters, albeit seeking a solution. We're back in a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back. Well, Muazzam Magaji is an APC national stakeholder. He was a member of the APC Presidential Campaign Council for 2019. Well, the views that you've expressed, there's so many who they say resonates with them at the moment, just reading through several comments. But the thing is, if there are several other people up north who have views such as yours, then there are natural questions. So, why are you not speaking up? Are they actually talking to the presidency to understand that, look, this is what people hear, this is what people feel, this is what people think should go on if we need to pull together as one?
Well, I think, honestly, this is a process. This is an evolutionary process for us in the North. Decades back, if I sit down here and say to you that I want this country restructured, if I go back to Kano, I probably will be stoned or harassed. But I can tell you now that the reality of the country's structure is down on everybody, that it's not workable. And this is one of the factors that made us realize all of that. We used to think that it is about getting a super leader, a credible leader that can move this country forward. And we actually bask in the Europea of, oh, he is our president. And I think in history of this country, there was never an individual, and there still has not, we haven't had one, that has enjoyed the support of the ordinary people, that has raised the hope of everybody, that has the credibility to say that his individual credibility will rub on the country leadership than President Muhammadu Buhari. And the North rooted for him for decades. and spent money and time and invested so much in his becoming the president of this country. Today, we are discussing all the challenges the country is facing under the same President Muhammad Buhari. So we are coming to the realization that it's not about individuals now. It's about the system. It's about the fact that the system is cobbled in such a way that there is what I will call a pull him down syndrome. There is internal squabbles for power and positions. There are forces working counterproductively for the way the country moves forward. And all of those forces emanates from those regional dynamics. The sense, real or otherwise, of marginalization, the sense of domination, the sense of opportunity and patronage is skewed to one part of the country or one ethnic groups. And all of these perceptions are becoming reality in our life. Reality in the sense that there are examples we can show. Another most important thing was that the president was perceived to be, like we said, a general, but also a very, very credible anti-corruption crusader. He has stated this, he has demonstrated this, he has lived this. And now we are witnessing that the system can actually leak and can invite people who can actually be marauders that can wreak havoc on the system. Unfortunately, the president's capacity and individual integrity did not stop all of that. So we are coming to a point where we are saying, you know what? It's not working anymore. And I'm not alone in this. I can assure you.
Are you making excuses? Are you making excuses for the president? Because there's people who will say that he hasn't quite exercised fully the position or the powers that his office bequeaths on him. So, for instance, you talk about agitations. The people who have talked about appointments, for instance, how the appointments the president has made is not reflective of the diversity of the country. I mean, when you look at the ethnic groupings, for instance, that's one. Even women complain about how they have not been sufficiently represented in the president's cabinet. Let's even take the cabinet, or not to now talk of the government in general. So has the president exercised to the full extent the credibility that he brought on board, the powers that his office bestows on him? Have we fully explored that first? The fact that oftentimes things happen, we don't get to hear consequences. Cabinet reshuffling hasn't exactly taken place. I could see in other administrations, not that they yielded much fruit, but at least it would seem that there was some consequence if there were any reportage for misdemeanors or questions to be asked about what was going on in ministries, departments, and agencies. Have we seen that yet?
I have just said to you that one of our despair is that the president hasn't manifested as the General Muhammadu Buhari we voted for. And therefore, like you rightly observed, Mofe, that he has not applied himself as his attribute, as he was known. In fact, we always joke within the cycle of a young generation that we voted for General Muhammadu Buhari and we have President Muhammadu Buhari. Two very different people. And honestly speaking, you've always highlighted that, cabinet appointments or positions is skewed towards a section of the country and people. I can tell you one thing, we are complaining about that too. What is important is it is skewed towards incompetent people. There are people in this administration that are not capable of managing their space. They are brought. We have a history of this administration. There were days we discussed about cabals running this country. We all knew many people came on board during those days and how they came on board. I'm sorry to say that is where the foundation of the problem started. And because this administration, like you rightly pointed out, has not restructured itself, has not purged itself of some of these people, we still live today paying the price of those people's incompetence. It is unfortunate that, honestly, we are suffering. Look, you can say anything you want about that it's our party, it's our government, it's our president. Yes, The KPIs are very clear. The KPIs, after 6 years, we have only 2 more years. Next year, by now, it will be full political storm in this country. Nobody will be talking about the president's and the development agenda. I am telling you, it is time for stock taking. As a party and as a government, I will say that we have lost a golden opportunity to translate those personal attributes of Mr. President, of anti-corruption, military experience, and his passion for the poor to lift people out of poverty, to secure the lives of people, and to fight corruption in this country.
How widely shared are these sentiments that you express so boldly on television? How widely shared is that within the ranks of the APC?
Oh, Mope, I want to tell you that I actually was relieved of my position as Commissioner of Works in Kano because of the same view, and I still stand by them. This country should be ruled democratically. This country should be ruled equitably and justly, and competent people should be brought on board our administration so that we will not be in this situation we are discussing now. And I want to say something very important. As much as we keep talking about what Buhari should do, I want to let especially generations from my age downward know that these gentlemen have been around for 40 years. Nigeria has given them everything. Most of the generations in power today were around 1999. So I will say this very clearly, another bold statement. I'm calling on young political generation, young Nigerians, to find a coordination platform, not to agitate for an anti-democratic changes, but to harness our energy towards a very credible democratic change. We will not and we should not succumb to the political machinations of these generations that has put us in this situation. We must find the platform at our local government level and at our state level to coordinate ourselves. We are greater in number, and democracy is about number. We should find a common ground, and we already have. And the common ground is simple: a functional, respected, and democratic Nigeria. We need that to happen, and the only way we can do that is to do 2 or 3 things. One, at our local government level, start organizing ourselves, women and youth, and take positions of party and contest. At state level, that is the most important part of this federation. We're doing our best in Kano to coordinate young people to create the necessary shift in the paradigm of power and the change we desire to see. In Nigeria, we need to apply ourselves properly so that we make a bid for the leadership of this country, even as other elders are also making a bid for it. There are only 2 outcomes. 1, we negotiate our space, or 2, we win the space. If we do this, we can change Nigeria. But before we do all of that, we have to agree on a one democratic, indivisible, restructured, functional, and respected nation.
I did ask, Amakwe did ask as well, if there were several other people who share these views, first within your party and up north, across board, perhaps. But, listening to you, I see messages on my phone asking me, am I sure that you're a member of the APC sharing this kind of views? But speak to this school of thought, where some always tout and bandy the impression that no, that insofar as perhaps if a Christian or a Muslim, in this case a Muslim is the president, they think that, well, people will always agree with whatever is said. And then some other people down thought that, well, look, you can't have anybody who has this kind of views exist in their numbers up north. And some others think that, well, actually, from what you have said, it does suggest that it may not necessarily take a lot to get people on the same page in this country, because there are mindsets across different parts of the country, even across religion, that they can actually sit on the same table and work together and pull the country in one direction. Do you think that that can actually happen, especially in the light of all the agitations we see today?
Yes, I am very positive that a lot of people, both in the north and in the south, are looking for a better Nigeria. What is happening, however, is that a group of very few Nigerians that have evolved over time and mainly product of military transition have hijacked the political and economic space of the country. And they have carefully designed a process of elimination and isolation for any credible, competent Nigerian that want to participate in contributing to this country's development. And I am not joking about this. I know many professionals that have volunteered in 2015 that came from abroad, diaspora Nigerians, to contribute selflessly to the change that we voted for, so that this country will be a better place and respected all over the world. They are witness to the comments, to the treatment, and to the situation Nigeria is subjected to outside, and therefore they are all frustrated and wanting to come and make a change. But I can tell you, unfortunately, as the transition unfolds, we had three dynamics. We had the president, whom we voted for, gave mandate to, and we have the party and the people, the ordinary people. The social contract was between the ordinary people and Mr. President. The first time in Nigerian history that actually people voted and their votes counted was when President Muhammadu Buhari came into power in 2015. And that social contract was tempered with the insertion of people we do not know on campaign trail, we do not know in the party, we do not know with Muhammadu Buhari in his cycle of aspiration to become president. And once that came, the power shifted. And therefore, special interest and vested interest grew in our system. That resulted in isolation and elimination of ordinary people consigned to the sufferings of so many harsh policies, and party stalwarts who have worked very hard to ensure this president became president. And also inviting people who were basically non-existent on the campaign trail and whose background and history was known to be the architects and the designers of this country's problem back into our system. So I am saying that the president has become president. His legacy will be written. He has a golden opportunity, 2 more years, to do the needful. I think I have stopped advising because honestly, I think he knows what to do after 6 years in power. And I will just pray for him that he succeed in solving this security problem, turning around the economy, and bringing about respect and development to this country as a giant of Africa. I will pray for the president. But beyond praying for him, I am asking for a very serious affirmative action by our generation to map a political path for a better Nigeria in a structured manner and in a democratic manner.
Well, that is indeed a good place to anchor. Mazu Magaji, APC national stakeholder and a member of the APC Presidential Campaign Council for 2019, and he's an engineer. Thank you very much indeed for your time and perspectives this morning.
Thank you for having me.
We're back in a moment. Please stay with us.
We are quite aware of the role an opposition plays in any democracy. However, the statement by the PDP caucus has gone too far, given the good working relationships that we had with them in the 9th National Assembly, especially the minority caucus in the Senate. In any democracy, the right to present criticisms and concerns on the state of the nation's affairs are unassailable. However, while we respect such rights, we believe that those rights come with obligations and responsibility. In all our deliberations, the entire Senate, including the minority, have discussed exhaustively in very robust, transparent, and patriotic flavor to arrive at our concrete resolutions, jointly without opposition from members of the minority caucus. We want to assure Nigerians that Mr. President is in charge of the government and is discharging his duties conscientiously and patriotically. It is a well-known fact that the federal government under the PDP refused to invest in the security infrastructure of the country, while Mr. President under the APC-led government had massively invested in this regard, more than any other past government, including the military. And we are confident that the nation will surmount its current security challenges.
Yes, indeed. You can keep those comments coming through. We've seen some of them. I will take them in good time. But yes, as you've seen there, Dr. Oke Kechuku joins us next. He is the Executive Director, Development Specs Academy. Good morning, and thank you for joining us today on the program. Well, here we are.
Good morning. Good morning.
Right, but taking a look at how the country and where it is headed. I mean, many are already saying, glimmer of hope, that indeed we can pull together. But from what you've seen and some of the steps that are being taken, because already we see people talking about 2023, but there is today. So we need to address the challenges of today to enable us get to that time where they think we will. But give us your impression of what you see playing out and how or where we should be headed.
Well, you spoke of people seeing a glimmer of hope. I don't know in what direction they are looking and they are seeing this glimmer. That's point number one. Number two, if you look at all the indices, there is insecurity, but more importantly, there is poverty. The volume of ungoverned spaces and ungoverned territories in Nigeria is increasing. Loyalty to government is declining. The number of disgruntled groups and individuals is increasing. And the security agencies are overstretched, particularly the military. Because if you look all over the country, in most border towns, in the cities, you find that soldiers now mark checkpoints. And you ask yourself, how many soldiers do we have? Do we have enough to even deal with the northeast such that you can spare some for the roads? So I am not quite sure I see the glimmer being spoken of. And talking about 2023, there are what you might call predisposing conditions to make the future feasible. What are you working towards in 2023? The Boko Haram flag came up in Niger. Abducted students are still held. Some are still being killed. By the record from Sentinel yesterday, 174 people died within last week. And so if you extrapolate that and assume that every week is 174, of course it's more, multiply that by 52 weeks, you see that if there is a glimmer of hope, I'm yet to see it. But if people think that because things are the way they are, they should spend all their time condemning the government and running our country down, it will not take us anywhere. We face an existential threat which we should all take seriously, because as it is today, nobody really knows what to do. So in summary, talking about what I see is confusion that the government appears not to know what to do about, overstretched government agencies, a focus on meetings and consultations, the illusion that speech-making can deliver leadership and governance. And also, you notice, some people have called for a state of emergency. Let us suppose a state of emergency is declared on national security. What will that deliver? Will it increase the number of soldiers we have? Will it change the fact that they don't have ammunition to fight? So, glib statements, which are mistaken for solutions, are actually adding to the crisis. Others are calling for a review of the national security architecture. Sit them down and ask them what they mean by it. This is a studio that belongs to Channels Television. If the studio is not functioning well, you might find that it has more to do with the behavior of people than with the structures in the place. So if you say change the architecture, what do you really mean? Change the command structure? What is it? So the further confusion arising also from jumbled government communication only takes hope away. And the real issue is that you now find larger and larger swaths of the Nigerian population unable to feel that they are citizens and therefore believing that self-help might be the solution. And it would appear that government reflexes as well as the communication from government is not creating enough, if you like, reason for comfort. So there's growing reasons, compelling reasons, in fact, for greater pessimism, if you ask me.
I was actually referring to some reactions that came through as a result of having heard Muazu Magaji. Some persons thought, well, they didn't know that those kind of views actually existed coming from the quarters which he represents. So that's in that respect. But when you then talk about self-help, people almost get into that stage. Then the questions to politicians. So as things stand now, what kind of measures or steps from the leaders or followers do you think should be done to avoid that kind of scenario? Because look, the thing is, if people are pushed to the wall, you know what they say about he that is down needs fear no fall. So what should be done, and from where, if we could describe them as the low-hanging fruits that we could leverage on?
Sorry, probably on a mischievous note, talking about he that is down needs fear no fall. It doesn't mean he shouldn't fear anything at all. He should fear ant bites. He should also fear being stepped upon. Now, people are down and are being stepped upon. So that saying, I don't know whether it still enjoys the original validity. When we ask the question, what should government do? It gives the impression that there's one action or series of action which is like a light switch. Once you turn it on, then all the problems are solved. No. Poverty has taken over most of the North. If you look at the schools where abductions have taken place, and in the states, all of them have been running education budget for the last 20 years of democracy. They've been also the previous governors. We've had publications of their achievements in education. And you go there, the schools are in terrible states of disrepair, without many of them protective walls and the rest of it. So first, when there is no government, people begin to rely on themselves. When much of government expenditure is on workers, and I put workers in inverted commas, and you find that the population of workers in the state is less than 200,000, but the bulk of the budget goes to them, you then find that actually the bulk of the population is not within that net, which of course has impact for taxation. That's not our concern at the moment. What should the government do? The federal government has a poorly equipped security
that's okay. If you could just hang on a minute. Just from that point, what should the government do? We'll take it from there when we return from this break. Please stay with us. Well, yeah, Dr. K, that's an element, at least the parents, good to see and hear that they are back with their families. But you were going to make a point about what should the government do? Please go ahead.
Well, let me first rejoice with the parents. It's really not easy to have the absence of a child for not just one day, but for a long time, and in the hands of people who could kill them. So I can imagine their relief. And I think we should all join them in thanking the Lord for the release of the children. Now, in the matter of what the government should do, let us also get a context so that the enormity of the problem will be clear. In November, I was in Chad, in N'Djamena, at the headquarters of the multinational giant task force comprising Nigeria, Cameroon, and I think Chad and Niger. And there were meetings with the local communities and their traditional rulers. The emerging facts show very clearly that the government is actually, of all the countries, in trouble. They pointed out that sometimes the armed services would come in, actually drive out the Boko Haram people, but because the business of the military is not to run communities, the absence of government, the absence of civilian presence in terms of amenities, makes them vulnerable again once the soldiers go. So they design a containment strategy. They do not cooperate with the soldiers. They cooperate among themselves. They conceal information. And those of them who can pay a small amount to go to their farms have created a symbiotic relationship there. So the first thing to do is to get the governments, state governments I mean, to realize that this war against Boko Haram will not end for as long as the governors think that it's okay to govern only part of their states. Secondly, there are stakeholders in every environment. The meetings you hold in Abuja, does it really involve them? Governors have come, they've met with the president, and they're thinking of how to solve the national security problem. How does that drill down to the local communities? So let them get the stakeholders close together. Let them come forward what the problems are, which is the fact that the place is ungoverned, there's no infrastructure, they are not in touch with their local government chairmen or their representatives, both at state and federal levels. So why are we asking what the government should do when there is actually no government, when there's actually nothing close to them that indicates government? When you have an increasing population of beggars, and then every year budgets are run. So these are the concerns. That in asking what the government should do, we are pretending that there is one magic action that needs to be taken. No. Progressively, we are moving towards a sharing of palliatives and giving things to refugees in refugee camps. That is taking the place of what the state administrations should be doing. So at the federal level, the arms you said you went to procure, where is it? Make it available. I think there will be need to increase the recruitment of soldiers. That will not solve the problem in the short term, but it will in the long run.
You know,
create actual security buffers. Act on intelligence, because it still remains a moot point whether the Chibok abductions would have taken place if government had acted, or those who should act had acted on the information provided. So what a disruption, total disruption of the governance framework is responsible for what we are seeing, and that has to be addressed. On top of all that is the need for some communication that indicates government sensitivity. You hear nothing from the president. Minority leader, I think the Senate caucus spoke about that yesterday. This pattern cannot continue. Giving ultimatum, the service chiefs have been directed to ensure this and that. What does that mean really in real terms? When you say you're going to declare a state of emergency, will a state of emergency provide ammunition or provide training or remove the fact that people are no longer loyal to the state or remove the fact that the highways are not safe or remove the fact that persons in leadership positions are distracted by their own people? No. So this government has to rejig itself. And when I say this government, I mean the government in power, the political leadership of other parties, and the elder statesmen who make up the Nigerian National Council of States.
Speaking about...
Yes, there has been some, in my view, substantial display of incompetence, more than the previous government, which was not particularly exceptionally competent. But
you know,
this is speaking about consensus. Our roof is collapsing.
Speaking about the governors, I think they will have, a lot of work to do in terms of regaining the confidence of the people, especially when they remember those palliative distribution at the time when the warehouses were raided. People were actually disappointed. They thought, if these leaders couldn't share as little as those little packages to them, how do we then expect them to do greater things, maybe in the realm of protecting lives and property? But the example of the statements made by Niger State Governor, from the examples that you've equally painted about...
After the abductions, yeah.
Yeah. So what is it that... Can that example apply, and how in Niger State, especially when he says they hoisted their flag, they're coming with sophisticated weapons? What can he do, especially when they say, look, we don't control those security agencies, they take instructions from Abuja? What can they do in that regard?
My first question would be, do you have security meetings in Niger State, as it's supposed to happen in other states? If there is, SSS, police, and all other military and paramilitary formations ought to be part of that. So the question to the governor will be, were you getting intelligence, and what were you doing with it? Were you relaying it and it wasn't being acted upon? That's at one level. At the second level, you have images of the schools attacked. How were they looking? Were they looking like proper schools? Thirdly, how could Boko Haram overrun the place, come in up to the point of actually mounting a flag if not for the fact that the place is thoroughly under-policed or not policed at all. So you see that the matter of blame cuts across several divides. There's a blame to the federal government that the country is not being governed, and then that of the state. So my take on the Niger thing is that flag is there because it is unchallenged. That flag could be hoisted there because the spaces around and before the school and around the areas where it is standing was ungoverned, has now become ungovernable. And if you recall, that flag did not occur on the first incursion of the bandits. It was after it had become like routine, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They go here today, they go here in the next place, and so after some time they mounted the flag. The position of the governor, I recall seeing the video where he was really talking on TV, very distraught. We'd been telling the federal government, but they've not been doing anything about it. But you see, even the choice of words suggests some exculpation for him. That, oh, you know, the federal government is not doing anything, I've been telling them to do something. What are you doing for those who elected you? How many times have you gone to your own state house of assembly and said, my dear people, in the name of those you're representing, I've come here to tell you that I've raised this matter. These are the challenges. Nothing is being done about it. So grandstanding on television is not governance. The federal government is not doing enough, in my view, across all fronts, economic, human capital, infrastructure, but it doesn't remove the fact that the state governors, most of them, are carrying on as if they are kindergarten school children who from time to time come out to cry, and then you go and give them what they want. Take the case of Niger State. Let the governor be interrogated. Sir, what is it you've been doing as governor in the last 1 year, in the last 2 years? As governor, yes, you've been governing. Tell us what happened during the COVID period. Tell us what happened when attempts were made to deal with poverty. Those are the kind of questions that should arise. He's not coming out on national television or grandstanding before the media. As an elected governor, I have a duty to secure that space. Yes, I'm hamstrung. I'm not in charge of the security of the area, but I have monthly security votes. This is how I've deployed it. And each time I refer to cases of people who were seen to have used security votes in ways that made sense. Peter Obi as governor. First, he scaled down the security vote he inherited by more than 50%, and then deployed it to local communities, bought them patrol vehicles, made sure they carried out their functions. So it was domesticated, it was transferred to the people, because in every environment, you know who doesn't belong. Now, have they scaled down security votes in the states where there's confusion? No. And they are complaining about federal government all the time? No. You see, without saying there's nothing wrong at the federal level and there's massive volumes of things that are wrong, we must apportion blames appropriately so that people develop the right sense of responsibility, so that citizens also understand that Abuja is not part of their community, that they have ward chairmen, they have council chairmen, they have local government chairmen, they also have members of the State House of Assembly, members of the House of Reps, whom they all elected as well as their governor. These are the things, that's when democracy will then take root. That's when security will become organic. People with guns cannot secure any place if the place is dominated by irresponsible civilian leadership.
Speaking about the citizenry, are we doing enough holding all of them from local government level to the top, the president, accountable to us, the people? Or are we so divided or so impoverished that we can't even pull together and ask those questions of the authorities across board?
No, it's no longer easy to ask those questions, because rather than ask the questions, what you now find is that different pockets of disgruntled persons and groups set up shop and begin to talk about their rights. They're increasing in number. If you listen to the narrative of IPOB, you may not like the fact that he's talking about dismemberment of the nation. But you also cannot ignore the fact that most of the issues it raises about marginalization of the Southeast has substance. If you then go to the Southeast and look at the reflexes of the governors as a group, you ask yourself, do they have a common position on anything? You go to the North, if you remember during the NSAS riot, the Northern governors came out to take a position in support of SARS, without asking themselves whether SARS is actually rendering any service they can be proud of. Because at the time they were speaking, bandits were chasing them out of their places. So that you find that the highest level of political and societal leadership the quality of public conversation, the quality of policy analysis and not have deteriorated remarkably. Now, what's the effect of that on citizenship? Balkanization of the concept of the citizen. So that citizenship is no longer loyalty to the Nigerian state, but loyalty to whatever interest at any moment you think will be served, either by your people or that will serve your pocket and the rest of it. So talking about mobilizing the people, no. On what platform? Would you say that Arewa youths are not mobilizing, or that IPOB is not mobilizing, or that the groups in the Southwest are not? But are they mobilizing in the name of the Federal Republic? Is the narrative of the governors creating a sense of national unity and cohesion? The answer is no. So the citizen is demobilized from responsible citizenship because of the absence of genuine governance. That is part of the crisis. And that is why, if I'm a state governor, I'll be concerned about reigniting that conversation in my state. Because in the end, every politics is local. There is no voting booth, no polling station on the internet, on Instagram, on Facebook. They're always local. And there's no amount of abuse or insult to the federal government in the papers, on TV, on the internet, by sitting governors that will change the fact that they must contain their own space. There are governors who have demonstrated some control. And that is not because they took over the police or the army in the area, but that they created group consensus. They were able to bring people together and say, ladies and gentlemen, if we don't take care of this place, we die. What can we do? That's the sort of thing that should be happening. Okay. Then progressively, the concept of the citizen might return. Right now, it's all right during national events to talk about patriotism, to praise Nigerians. It's all right to see a Nigerian who is doing very well in Harvard or is the best footballer and praise him, or the one who has won a music award. The truth remains that that youth you're celebrating has become what he is before the rest of the world in spite of Nigeria, not because of Nigeria. Whereas our goal, our desire would be for them to be what the world sees them to be because of Nigeria. So mobilizing the citizen now, with poverty and hunger, with jobs gone, with close to 40% of companies that were functioning in 2015 no longer in existence, no. And with population of beggars growing every day, such that even in some parts of Kano now, you cannot go and pick from any dustbin you like because there are those who have custody of it. Is that progression? These are the issues to consider. And it's all over the country. It's not about the North.
Dr. Kichuku, so many things that you've said, very, very, jaw-dropping, if I can say. But there was something you said earlier about social interventions. And I don't know how we can go about that, because over the past few days, you would see on the front pages of the newspapers, and the facts are actually there, that many of the states are broke. That's on the one hand. In fact, there's a report in the papers earlier in the week that some states can't pay their debt in 50 years. You say the other time, and you've also talked about the dustbin analogy now, that many people are very, very hungry. There is a high level of poverty in the land. The unemployment figures are there. And you talk about social interventions and how significant they can be. Seeing that the states, according to the reports that's everywhere, are broke and the figures are not very, very favorable, how then do you think we can begin to approach these social interventions, especially at the time when the CBN says they got to start paying back their debts?
Well, first of all, if the states are broke, the question to ask them is, what did you spend your money on? That's the first question. And really, one duty of a medical doctor to a patient is to be honest. If you have a terminal condition, the best thing is for you to be told and told how to manage it. Anybody who saw the reflexes of the ruling elite 10 years ago would know beyond doubt that we are going to come to a situation like this. And watching also the reflexes of the current government, it was easy to see that it was going to come faster. Now, all the monies, leave the states first. All the borrowings by the federal government, what has it gone into? Consumption. In my place, they say if you borrow money to take a chieftaincy title, something must be wrong with you. You marry more wives on borrowed money, take a chieftaincy title on borrowed money. How are you going to sustain the regalia after the ceremonies? Those are the issues. The country has also gone into very huge debts on consumption. distributed in the name of poverty alleviation, trader money, what do you call the other one? Cash transfer, and so many other things. They are eaten. Now, has the Federal Office of Statistics told us that there's a decrease in poverty because of the trillions distributed? The answer is no, because it hasn't gone into wealth creation. It has gone into consumption, some of it capital consumption. So that's at the federal level. Then in respect of the states, these states that are owing money they cannot pay in 50 years, the records are there. Go and check what they are spent on. Overhead, political, what do you call it? Political, what's the word for it now? Patronage and the rest of it. So the time for accountability is beginning to dawn on us. Also, it's not just a question of political leadership. The people, to an extent, have a share in the blame because you gave me money and I voted for you. You sold me your birthright and your future up front for 4 years. Whatever happens to you, you're partly responsible for it. It is quite possible that the events that are going to come, lined up, cascade of calamities actually, might induce some reflection and compel people to begin to take informed decisions about their future. I do not see the silver lining people are talking about. I'm not pessimistic. I'm only saying that when a child decides not to read his books, he will fail. The lesson of failure will make him take his or her studies seriously when he's in class with those who should be his or her juniors. Bringing that onto the political plate in terms of the debt and the crisis on the table, it is self-deception for anybody to come on TV and give you a solution. Solution to a political environment where lopsided appointments have made a section of the country to practically withdraw faith from the Federation, where expenditures are shooting through the roof, where there's a perception of a conscious design to wipe out possibly a part of the country, where there's no rail line in the southeast, but there's one going to Chad, where social infrastructure has been terrible for 20 years, PDP years, APC years, where people are busy abusing Buhari without noting the fact that it wasn't remarkably different before him, only that it got worse, and that he appears less sensitive than other equally incompetent people before him. Those are the issues on the table. So talking about silver lining, I don't know the meaning of silver, but I know that silver lining suggests hope. There might be people who are seeing hope. Such people, I believe, are looking for some short-term quick fixes, something government will do to show up its image, give some money here and there, announce a new committee. I don't see a short-term solution because the elite itself is not changing any of its reflexes, spending pattern, number of vehicles, expenditure on overhead, expenditure on security votes, privileges, and the rest of it. And that's where the money is. Have you heard National Assembly people talking about a reduction in their entitlements? Have you heard them saying we will now make sure we hold consultations in our states once every month? I don't. Well,
I guess those are some of the issues, too, that needs to be focused on a lot more, because if they're asking us to tighten our belt, we need to see that example. But we do thank you for your perspectives this morning, Dr. Oke Ikechukwu, Executive Director, Development Specs Academy. All right, we're back in a moment. Don't go away. All right, welcome back. Let's take a look at some of the comments coming through from you. Well, Tony Ajiri, this is from you. Say, your guest today, that's Ms. Magaji, has made our day on Sunrise Daily. He says it's the way it is. He has, in fact, analyzed Nigeria the way it is and has proffered practicable solutions to our mirage of problems. He is spot on.
There are so many tweets reacting to the submissions of Mr. Mwazu Magaji. A lot of them are coming in on our tweet line this morning. But let's take this email from Desuni. He is writing to our email address. It says, please, I want to bring to your attention the current situation of things within the Federal Ministry of Education and Federal Civil Service. The newly employed education officers since 2018, 2019, 2020, posted to different unity colleges, haven't been paid their salary for 2 years.
What?
Oh, yes, that's not something that brings hope.
2 years.
Talking about hope. I mean, how have they survived for 2 years? He says the teachers have been working tirelessly, contributing their quota to national development, but have been subjected to so much excruciating pains trying to meet up with their basic needs. This is akin to wickedness and modern-day slavery. I want you to help bring this to the knowledge of Nigerians, the subjugation going on and the suffering of Nigerian teachers in our federal government colleges.
That's corruption. If that isn't 2 years,
that's wickedness.
That's the word, Mark. That's the word.
2 years.
Because, I mean, for God's sake, we've been talking about the fact that some of these schools have been under attack.
Yes.
And these are the teachers that are supposed to defend the students in the schools, and if they haven't been paid for 2 years, that's
what have they been living on? What have they been living on? You saw that statement by NLC president. Miracles strutting on 2 legs. And you have to ask, why haven't we heard anything before now from these teachers?
And from NUT.
Maybe they have been working on it and been promised, don't worry, we'll get it this week, don't worry, next month, and hoping against hope. And now, it's 2 years.
But should at least, maybe if we had heard about it, if it had been public knowledge before now, I believe that the National Union of Teachers is the Nigerian Union of Teachers is an affiliate of the NLC.
Indeed.
And if they are an affiliate of the NLC and we haven't heard that for 2 solid years.
Yes, so there should be questions for that union as well and the leadership of the union
certainly
as well.
Is that even before or after the minimum wage review?
If they are afraid of government, because if they're a federal agency and they're afraid they might sack them, what about the alumni? They could help to speak up because they need to, because you send your children to those kind of schools. So that's
so you can imagine when teachers haven't been paid for 2 years. And,
what would they be teaching?
What would they be teaching and what will your children be going through in those schools? They could be extorting the children,
absolutely,
bullying them, transferred aggression and all manner of things. No accountability. Oh, that's the mail we received this morning from Desuni.
Well, hopefully, if we'll take a look at others in the days to come. But look at this one from Paul. It's a tweet. It says, "We must shelve politics and ethnic divisions if the security challenges must be overcome, or else it'll consume us as a nation." It's a reaction to the conversation from our first guest.
Well, your chorus says, "Now I know we're not done with Nigerian projects. We shall have a meeting point and reshape our nation."
And AGK says, "I just cast my vote this morning in the UK election for a police crime commissioner. It took me 2 minutes. No police, no thugs, no thumbprinting, no ID card, just 3 ladies who are electoral officers. Nigeria, we will get there."
So, he's rubbing it in.
It's a note of hope. Come on, you've been talking about hope.
Oh, yeah. And speaking about hope, I said that Henry says, if we have more men from the north, like your guest this morning, that will come out to speak the truth to power and that have ideas of how our national marriage can work, then we can say there is hope for Nigeria.
National marriage. You have to be careful. I mean, only recently Bill and Melinda Gates divorced after 27 years. Marriage.
Oh, boy. I know that word these days.
But really, I mean, there is nothing we can do about that. You heard, was it former President Obasanjo saying that the conversations about Nigeria's marriage didn't start in 1914. It started in 1912, and they just needed one person to bail the cart, so to speak. So who is going to? Is there a marriage review?
Brings about divorce sometimes, annulment sometimes.
Why do you have to? We're not going there. This is
okay.
For better, for worse. Till death do us part.
It's a Catholic marriage. Okay.
Oh boy.
Well, that's the show
Hopefully
today.
none of this party dies.
Oh, come on. Can we just go already?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Well, I'm Ayo Makinde. Have a wonderful day and please keep safe.
You know, one of the things I love about Lagos is the fact that they have these guys are all taken care of. It's no wonder they're looking this good. They just asked me what I was going to have for breakfast even before the show started. So I'm looking forward to that this morning. Thank you for watching this morning. And I'm ending on a note of hope. Not of hope. I'm hopeful for something after this program.
The people can be their own local government. Why can't we? I'm Chamberlain, so we'll see you tomorrow.